Y'all, so we are back to Married to Medicine. We are back in Atlanta, honey. We are driving down the interstate on Fulton County, and they are insistent on these newer episodes of constantly showing us what everybody's doing at the beginning, which I kind of really like this little makeup where we see everybody doing something different and how their day is starting. So we start off with Toya, and she is talking to Letitia, aka Sweet Tea, and she is mentioning that the guys are going to be throwing Greg a bachelor party, leading up to their wedding, and she and Phaedra have decided to throw Sweet Tea a nice little like bachelorette kind of relaxation vibe situation, and they want it to be something she enjoys. They know she's having a stressful time right now, and they want to really throw something from them for the evening. So Sweet Tea seems interested and excited. We then go over to Phaedra, who is watching the kids play I think soccer or whatever. Why Phaedra in one of them coats from back in the day in the 80s? I'm gonna find that coat, y'all. I'm gonna post it. She had one of them coats from back in the 80s that the aunties used to wear that little had the fur on it with a little like it was a fake Versace print. I can't express it. But that's how that coat look on Phaedra. She in that blonde wig child, watching them kids play sports outside, having a good old time, just really vibing. Then we find Quad in her kitchen cooking with her assistant. Why does Quad have an assistant? Um, Girl, what is it that you do? I really don't know, besides being on the show. Quad is with her assistant, and I guess they're having a kiki. We're gonna get back to the whole dynamic of Quad's assistant and what that is gonna really look like for the rest of the season, or was he there just for the show? It's throwing me off completely. We then focus in on Jackie and Simone, who are sitting down to have lunch. And I have to absolutely say, one of my favorite parts about Married to Medicine from the very beginning has always been Jackie and Simone's friendship. I just feel like it's the most genuine friendship on the show. I'm glad they found their way back to each other, because I feel like Jackie and Simone, and we know this because they already were, would be real life friends even if they weren't on TV. And I feel like that's something that I loved about them when they first started the show. And I love that we're getting back to that vibe. I also recently just saw on Thanksgiving that they were both at the hospital. They had been with their families because they both had babies to deliver. And so they happened to both be at the same hospital, because they had patients that were going into labor. It was so beautiful to see. And there's just an authenticity about their relationship that I feel like we don't always get from all the other women. Anyway, they're sitting down to have lunch outside of Jackie's practice, and while Simone pull up, then she has the food for them. Then she sit down and start yelling to Jackie outside. Girl, she's indoors. She's indoors behind a brick window. There's nobody else in the situation. Why don't you give her a call? So she's calling her. As she's calling her, she said, "Hey, girl, I'm outside. Come outside before I eat your lunch." So her and Jackie sit down, and they're chilling in their sisterhood. And, they start having a conversation about, just staying fit and salads and all that kind of stuff. And they turn it into a conversation about Sweet Tea and, being overwhelmed from the last time that they were together, which is when they were kind of meeting up for Toya's wine event. And so, you know, essentially she says that Sweet Tea's kind of overwhelmed and, she's trying to figure everything out. At the same time, she's kind of planning the wedding, her own or whatever. And it feels a bit, it feels like a lot. And so they start having this conversation about, I guess, kind of an ageist one about, being able to do all of the things that she's doing. Because Sweet Tea asked Simone about an assistant. And Jackie's like, oh my God, like kind of energy. Like, why would you need an assistant? Like, basically, why do you need an assistant if you're at home all day? And, she's like, these kids nowadays, and this is the part of the conversation I really hated because it always plays a false narrative about all the things that people could do in the prior generations, even though it's not honest. I don't know. Let's kind of get into that, y'all. So here's something I don't like about it. I hate these conversations that go around the idea that like, oh, when I was my generation and I'm turning into my mother, but when I was younger, I could do A, B, C, and D and I could still get home on time. And the truth is that was a lie. The truth is a lot of those Black women were struggling. They were in constant distress. They were constantly feeling like they had to juggle a lot of things. There's no reason why if you're married to another whole human being, that there isn't some balance of work on most of the occasions. There's going to be times where there is imbalance, but the idea that Sweet Tea couldn't ask for an assistant while she's planning a wedding is crazy. She's her own wedding planner, so she's not having assistance in that area. She could choose to do that, or she could say, okay, there's one or other things that I'm going to take off the plate to do. It's so dumb to me that we live in 2023 and people don't see things that are meant to make your life a little bit more convenient and, exercise those things. I think there's nothing wrong with her saying, hey, maybe don't do the grocery shopping, which it sounds like that's what she was really talking to Simone about. And really not just saying, hey, if you know somebody that's trustworthy, because normally when you're on reality TV or if you have a little bit of money, you want to be careful about just hiring anybody off the street, because anybody wants to be assistant, especially in Atlanta, honey, that will then tell your business later. So she probably was asking Simone as in personally, do you know anybody? Because I need to get somebody who's trustworthy so my information won't be on the internet 3 days from now. So I think that's what she was asking her. But the idea that Simone was pushing this really, really harmful narrative about I could do all of the things and still have it, to table on time is not true. Simone was struggling, and we saw that in the first couple of seasons of the show, and it did take a strain on her marriage. Like, you can ask for help. It's okay to source things out, even if it's not through a personal assistant when it comes to shopping or if it comes to like doing certain things that I don't know, from anything from shopping to picking up clothes to getting something from Best Buy. Honey, why you think we use Amazon? I ain't finna go out for every single thing that I need when it could come to me. So I think it was a little fake to pretend as if, those women just didn't struggle. They didn't have any issues. They definitely were not, they were surviving. And that's a big difference between surviving and thriving. And so I think there needs to be more balance in that conversation. But I do love seeing Jackie and Simone together. And, it is what it is. Let's continue. Sweet tea girl, get up. So this is what really pissed me off, y'all. I cannot believe that this lady is sitting here spilling her guts to Heavenly, knowing that Heavenly ain't nobody friend. I honestly feel bad for her because I think when she was doing it at the time, Heavenly had lulled her into a false sense of security with her. Because we know from the picture that Kawhi got that she showed Phaedra last episode that, she definitely believed that Heavenly was her friend, and she definitely believed that like she was sitting in a trustworthy conversation. She knows she's on camera, so it's not completely without it. But did y'all notice that Heavenly wanted to get that shot in? Because she probably been around Sweet Tea before, and she probably know that if she get a shot or two of liquor in her, she will be more open and more willing to spill information. That's so sinister to me. I just feel like that's such a weird, mean energy. And the fact that she's so focusing on their relationship, I feel like this is why, and this is in general why as a woman, you shouldn't even drink around people who you don't trust. You shouldn't be having drinks or be that relaxed in nature with people that don't mean you no good. I just don't think this lady knew, because she had been hanging out with these women prior to now, and they have been embracing her, but really it's just to get this information from her, at least from Heavenly, honey. So Sweet Tea is talking with Heavenly. They're having conversation. They meet up. And they're having a conversation about the wedding. Heavenly asked the lady when they sit down at the restaurant, hey, you can get a shot from my friend because she's getting married. And she starts asking her about the wedding. And of course, once Sweet Tea takes the shot, she starts spilling all her information. Honey, that shot of Patron to do it every time. That of Casamigos, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And so she starts telling Heavenly about how she feels like she just thought Greg would be more involved in the wedding. And I really didn't understand this conversation, specifically around the involvement. I mean, to me, as a woman, you should always kind of know if your man is the type of man that cares about these kind of things as you're talking and, spending time with him, like certain things in the house. If he doesn't really care about the aesthetics of the home and he's like, as long as you don't mess up, but how much is it going to cost? Then you got to realize you're going to probably end up decorating the home by yourself. If you show him that Pinterest picture, honey, and that paint sample and he don't give a damn, first of all, it's kind of a good thing. But second of all, that means that for the most part, you could do what you want. And it's the same thing with the wedding. Greg probably more so cares about the bottom line, like, hey, how much is it going to cost me? And then he's obviously doing the actions that's focusing on the marriage part. Like, let's go get our marriage license, all that stuff. Like he said, they did a lot of that stuff early. So I don't think he cares about the aesthetics as much as she does, but I also think he trusts her in the aesthetics. The man seems like he's just happy and he want to be married. He don't really care about all the other extras of that because he had a marriage like that and it did not work. So, she said she just keeps talking about how she thought he would be more involved. She also talks about how, like, sometimes he does things that are a little bit manipulative to teach her a lesson. Obviously, this whole situation about him pretending that there were robbers in the house because she don't always put on the alarm was kind of dumb, and it just didn't make any sense. Communicate with your wife, sir. That's stupid. You don't need to teach her lessons, like she said. You're not her daddy. And that was the wackest part about that. And those instances are going to creep up because Greg's probably last serious relationship was his wife. So he needs to work on things if he wants this relationship to thrive and be better, because it's not all on Sweet Tea. I think a lot of times people in general, regardless if it's Greg or if it's Quad or if it's anybody, if you're not in a serious relationship after like you've been in a long-term relationship or marriage, the things you used to do in your old relationship are going to creep up, even if you've dated in between. If you haven't had a serious relationship in between that time, all that stuff going to flesh out. And we know Heavenly down there taking notes, honey, so she can spread that girl information later. Child, so we sitting down with Cecil and Simone. They sitting down with their kids, honey. One is 20, one is 24. Michael, Cycle, I don't know, William. I can't remember the name of the children, but both are grown now. We remember them from when they were little children. They're now grown up in college. And Cecil and Simone are sitting down having dinner with them the way you do when you're in college and you sit up, meet up with your parents and, you're going to probably ask for money afterwards. You just sit there anyway. Anyway, Cecil and Simone having this conversation and they start just talking about the young man's life paths. They have a young son. He's 20. He recently just went on vacation and they're asking about their spring break and he had a good time. He was in Mexico and Cabo, honey, ordering Ubers for everybody left and right and having a good old time. He's trying to find his way. He's in school and he was out of school. Now he's back living with them. They got another son, 24. He's been back and forth into different programs in college and he's been all over the world and traveled. And now he is a film media major. And so Simone's concern in this conversation that they're having with them is that they just haven't found direction. And her real issue is that in them not finding direction, they also haven't found work. They don't have jobs. They're not independently taking care of themselves in any capacity. Her and Cecil are footing the bill and she's tired. Simone is on some, look, we are supposed to be empty nesters right now at this point. I mean, 20 is still young enough to do that, but at 24, you should have some clarity about your plan. Now, if you're in film school and your parents are paying for it, it's cool, but maybe having a part-time job or some sense of responsibility is what they're looking for. And neither of the sons have that. And you can see that they definitely grew up in entitled situation. She starts to discuss more about how it's frustrating because she wasn't like that at their age. And also she is frustrated with the fact that they are not finding direction and that they're comfortable just continuing to live inside of her home or rather their parents' home until they get it together. Cecil sees it differently. He seems to be sort of coddling them or really connecting with them. And I think Cecil's energy is around the idea of a lot of people who feel like, okay, maybe young kids, maybe even young Black kids get pushed into adulthood so fast. And in other cultures, sometimes people are supportive of their kids a little longer than just like, once they're 18 and out the house, they got to go get a job. I don't see their dynamic this way because Simone has no problem paying for, and Cecil have no problem paying for their college situation. They have no problem housing the kids. Is that it seems to be enabling them to waste time longer. And the scary thing about a 24-year-old or 21-year-old or 22-year-old that doesn't have any clarity at all is turning into a 30-year-old that doesn't have that clarity. And then a 35-year-old and you're living in your mama basement at 36, 37, arguing about, who put your name on the milk. That's the problem that I think Simone is having. Cecil doesn't see it as that. He sees it like we have financial resources that me and you didn't grow up with. We had to figure it out for ourselves. And our kids having the advantage point to not do that is one of the things we worked hard for. But Simone worries, and I agree with her on this, that it's teaching them to be like very entitled and also to not be more mature. And that's something that I felt like in college, I had to learn steps of maturity, even though my parents were helpful when I was in school. I by no means came from a rich family, but at the same time, I didn't come from like a family that was super struggling. So I was able to have like a balance of my family, my parents helping me, and then like family members sometimes who would do stuff. But I also very much had a job in college. I had more than one, honey. I had my own apartment that I was paying for by the time I was in my junior year. So it's like one of those things where you understood the financial importance of being responsible. You understood those things, and when you don't have those steps in a space that's supposed to be independent, like school, it becomes problematic when you try to bridge the gap sometimes later on, especially because young men do, I think, mature less fast than young women. But I think that also is in relationship to how you were raised. And so I agree 110% with Simone. They need to get it together and they need to get a plan to get out of her home. Because why was one of the sons asking her, can she get him an apartment? And they use it as a rental property and he could just stay there. And Cecil over there agreeing. Simone basically says that Cecil and her are not on the same page. And because he sees things one way than her, they end up often clashing about how the boys are maturing and moving. I appreciate that they kind of had the conversation in front of them, though I thought some of it felt a bit uncomfortable. I do think it was important for the young men to see that, like, hey, this is causing an issue because I don't agree on this situation, and we're not an endless stream of money. You need to get it together. You need to find your own way in a lot of ways. And, maybe that's going to mean Simone and Cecil have to cut them off. I don't know, child. Y'all let me know in the comments how y'all feel. Do you feel like Simone and Cecil are doing the right thing by supporting them no matter what? Or do you think that they need to cut off the stream of money and watch them find their way? All right, y'all. So we doing more kids stuff. And I absolutely love these moments of Married to Medicine. This is such a refreshing, at least the beginning part of this episode is such a refreshing part, more so from what we came from last week. I love to see everybody being focused on the family and just being focused on having a good time. I love to see it. And so we're meeting Heavenly in the kitchen with Alora and eventually Damon, and they're having a conversation about Alora being prepared for college and specifically around the idea of her having a mate and, getting a boyfriend when she gets to school. I understood where Heavenly was coming from, but it also annoyed the hell out of me. And it's one of the things that really irritates me about Heavenly is like making Alora's college experience so male centric. Like, girl, find out what your daughter want to do when she in school, and what are her interests, and what does she want to get out of a college experience? It's not about whether or not she meet a man. So, Heavenly keeps talking about how she's trying to prepare Alora to cook for her husband. And Alora, like, my husband ain't gonna want no spaghetti. And so she's like, well, that's how I got your daddy and Damon. So then, of course, Damon appears and they start having a conversation. And the conversation shifts from Alora being with the man and starts being about Alora staying close to home when it comes to school. And Alora is saying that, she basically is implying that she really may want to go to FAMU. And, that would obviously be in Miami, would obviously be in Florida, which would be away from where Heavenly and them are in Georgia. And they start having a conversation about how, it's kind of far away. And Alora's like, yeah, but it would be great for me to go to FAMU, which is Heavenly's alma mater. And I think she pushes the FAMU thing because she knows that Heavenly went to FAMU and she would be proud for her daughter to be a Rattler. So I think she maybe even picked it because it would maybe make her mother feel a little bit proud about the fact that she was following her in her footsteps as far as the college, and then therefore be more comfortable with her going to that school. And, her and Damon are arguing about the fact that, being closer to home could be better. And Heavenly keeps pushing the fact that Alora could stay in Atlanta and specifically in Georgia, go to school at Spelman. And of course, Spelman's right there in Atlanta. And of course, I'm going to Spelman. She can help Heavenly still run her, beauty supply store and learn underneath her mom and be around her mom. And, Alora is far from wanting to do that. Damon keeps pushing this narrative about how it would be nice if she was closer. And, he went to school at Case Western, which I believe is in, I think Case Western's in Kansas. It's in the Midwest, I believe. But he's saying that, by going to Case Western, he was 8 hours away from home. And, it would have been nice if she's a little bit closer in case something was to happen. Anything can happen nowadays. Anything can happen nowadays anywhere. But he's saying he can get there to get to her closer. And they're having one of these moments that parents have often when picking, the school helping the kid to pick the school that they want to go to. And it's just, those jitters of the fact that Alora's the only girl, because Damon does mention that he knows he's going to sound a bit sexist, but he hates the idea that she's going away to school someplace that, he can't get to her as quickly. He felt less pensive about their sons going to college away because he knew they could handle themselves physically. And that doesn't really pan off in real life. Anything can happen to your kids regardless of gender. But I understand Damon because he's got one daughter. He's probably very sensitive about her. My dad was for me and my sister. Like, it's the whole princess vibe of like who you are or whatever. So I completely understand where he was coming from. But I also think it's so important for Laura to find her way. And if that means stepping away from her parents, that's how you get grown. That's how you get kids. It's not like Simone kids right now, which is like too stuck on not being independent. And I think Laura definitely gives the energy that she'll find her own way and be independent. But they keep trying to force this, come stay home, closer, closer, closer. Anybody trying to kick it with Heavenly and that husband in that house? Heavenly like, well, you ain't got to live with me. And Laura like, I ain't trying to live with you. It was just a very funny conversation to see. And it was refreshing to see that that's something that people don't realize parents go through when trying to, their kids going off to school, that there's sort of an empty nest feeling of like, I don't want you to go. I'm glad Alora wants to be independent. And I also just found it weird that they acted like they were so worried about her safety, because I don't think if Alora had, let's say, gotten accepted to Stanford, which is all the way in California, they'd have been feeling the same way. They probably would have been more than happy to send her off there. So I kind of hate that they're trying to keep her so close and not allow her to sort of explore her, spread her wings and explore herself. She go to FAMU for a year. She don't like it, she can come back home. But let the girl have her time there. So fast forward with Eugene, and Eugene is sitting down with his boys and they're having their own bonding moment. And this was also very cute to see. I love to see a Black man with his kids, honey. It is very much something that is common more than people who think it is. And I love when those moments are showcased on television. And so Eugene is sitting and talking with the boys. He's having this conversation about, the fact that he wants to spend more time with his sons than he did before, because they're starting to get to a certain age where they're starting to grow and mature and they're hitting puberty. And there are things that he thinks that you can teach your kids, especially young men, should be able to teach their sons at a certain age. He mentions his own dad was a very strict father but he did spend a lot of times with his kids when he wasn't working, and he made it a point in the summer times and stuff to take his kids out and do tons of activities because his dad, I think, was a corrections officer or worked in law enforcement. And so he, spent time with them doing things in the summertime, hanging out, going to the movies, things like that to bond with their kids. And Eugene feels like that's something that he really wants to get into with his boys at this age. So he takes them sneaker shopping, they have conversation, he asks them what's going on. They do the thing that most kids do at that age where they don't want to really talk to their parents about their school life or personal life, but so much like they like, it's like that weird point where your parents like, what's going on? You're like, oh, you're not hip anymore. So they kind of do that to Eugene. He does let them know that he wants them to start spending more time together and doing more guy things together because they're at the age where he feels like he could do that. When they were younger, they were around mommy more. And the son says, like, are you bored? And he's like, no, I just think we need to spend more time together. He asked him, do they have any other questions about the conversation that they had with him and Toya regarding sex that they had in the last episode? And the boys at first say no. And then one of the kids basically says, like, what's a period? And Eugene's like, that's something you should be asking your mother. It's like, sir, you just asked them to ask you this question. So Eugene then begins to break down the period. And of course, they feel like it sounds disgusting. And they kind of put two and two together and realize what a tampon is used for. There's this whole, reproductive, bleeding conversation that happens, which is like on the ill factor of it all. But there is this moment where you also realize that Eugene is establishing this relationship that the boys can come and talk to him about anything. They pay for the sneakers. Eugene said, let's get some lunch. And that's the end of our family time. So, child, let's get into the dirty fun. We had a little bit of the clean family time. It was beautiful. It was nice. It was just a joy to see. But, honey, let's get down to the nitty gritty, honey, because now we back up in these streets. And Simone and Cecil are having a conversation about later on tonight. Simone basically saying, like, hey, I know you're doing the bachelor party for Greg. Like, what is it supposed to be? Like, let me know what the deets are. And he's like, we just might have a couple, we're going to go to a gentleman's club or whatever. We might, we're going to get a party bus for him. And then, from the party bus, he might go to yoga. And Simone was like, Cecil, please. She said, I know y'all not even going to do that. Like, you don't have to lie to me about the bachelor party. Just let me know what the deal is. Meanwhile, Toya and Phaedra are getting the event set up, honey. They got rose petals everywhere. It's very, very nice. Looks to be like it's in a penthouse suite. Everything is being set up. And then the strippers walk in, or the massagers. I don't know if they hired man hands. I don't know what the situation was, but nice looking set of men show up in just boxer shorts, as we would appreciate. We start to see skin, limbs, oiled up, ready to go. Phaedra's in an exciting setting. And both her and Toya are dressed really cute. To be honest, Toya's outfit was my favorite of the entire night because I feel like it was really it looked like it was a chemise, but it honestly looked like a sexy dress. I don't think she really technically had on lingerie. I think she had on a satin dress, and it was really, really pretty. But it's still really sexy. So they're looking at the men, they checking them out, looking at the deets, turning them around, all that good stuff. The same way men would do a stripper child. And Toya says, oh, I love your boxes. It says hot on it. She says, okay, you the cute one. So she points to one of the guys. She said, okay, you're going to be the one that greet ladies at the door. So next thing you know, in walks Heavenly and Jackie. And, they're in their full deets and outfit, honey. Kevin got a little Inspector Gadget jacket on. Jackie walking in. They greet the stripper. Here go Heavenly. Don't talk to, she said, don't you start and don't touch me, sir. I'm married. I was like, Heavenly's such an old lady that really, really be wanting to creep out of her shell, but then she just got to find some way to bring on down the energy. And why would they started moving around and sort of see what the strippers look like and the environment looks like, and Heavenly busy calling Toya a freak, saying, oh, all this freaky stuff she got to showing up in lingerie, but Heavenly got one of the tightest, sheerest outfits on of the night. Okay, looking like a stuffed Cupid doll, because everybody else had like little lengthy stuff on. Maybe Phaedra was a little revealing, and maybe Simone was, but Heavenly right tight up there, Toya kind of covered. And so was Jackie, to be honest. Why Jackie was standing next to the stripper talking to him, having a conversation. Why Jackie like she was trying to preach him, like, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your life and savior? I swear that's what she was giving me. I was like, she got that man cornered. Like she trying to turn his life around. Jackie be hilarious in some of these instances, honey. So Heavenly complained about the dress code and how everything is skanky, but she wearing the tightest, fittest thing there. And she says that, it looks a little, overly sexy. Why Toya got us on all this BS? Meanwhile, in comes Simone and Alicia. And honey, how come Alicia made no effect on me once again? That lady is literally dressing for the show. We have not met her. We haven't gotten interested in anything she has going on. At this point, she is just an extra. Like she could really be anybody. They could actually change Dr. Alicia at this point to somebody else, and I wouldn't have known that wasn't her. That's how much we don't hear her voice, or she's a non-factor so far. So her and Simone walk in. Simone looking fantastic, honey. She got a nice little like lingerie piece with like a little jacket. And she got like a little cape on. Simone was revealing, honey, showing the legs, the limbs. She like, y'all know why Cecil was into it. And, you know, she's talking about the fact that Toya said tonight is not about sex because everybody's like, oh, this is too sexy. And Toya's like, look, tonight's about being pampered. You're going to look sexy. It's going to be a sexy vibe, but it's about y'all getting sexy. And she really, really meant that. The men start massaging the women's limbs and everybody's getting everything, rubbed down and they're having conversation about, the excitement of just having a chill in normal night. And even Heavily gets in and says, well, I do have a crick in my neck. And the man started rubbing her back and she's like, that feels good. And here go Toya with a can of whipped cream spraying in between Heavenly breasts, honey. It was all the drama that we love to see, but it was nice, easy drama, and it was really fun to see them just getting along. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Cecil is getting the guys all set up to go. Everybody's arriving at his house, and they're talking about how, they're just going to have a fun and full night tonight. All the men are just talking about the fact that, it's Greg's last night being like a bachelor technically, or one of his last nights. And Greg is saying, to being married a second time, the man is just happy and they're happy for him. And he's happy that Cecil is throwing this party. They, clink glasses and then head on into the party bus, honey. And the party bus got two strippers already on the bus. They're supposed to be going to a gentleman's club, but they're having a little bit of party before they go. And when I tell you the strippers were stacked, and out of everybody there, not only was Greg excited, but good old, well, I'll say this. Greg was excited, but also Eugene was excited. And why Eugene said, Toya said before they got on the bus that she should have gave him some instead of letting him be around those strippers without having any. He's like, I'm just going to be respectful and it's going to be what it is. And they turned the camera around. I thought I saw Greg's brother on the bus. Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all saw him, because I thought he was there, but I'm not completely sure. Why was Curtis having the funnest time of all? So him and Jackie's love life, or specifically that area, is very boring. Curtis looked super excited. He like this was his regular thing. Honey, he had the balloon out. He had the money out. He knew what was going on. It was constant in his face. I was like, Curtis having more fun than anybody there. It's a back and forth between the parties. Sweet Tea walks in with her sister. She looks very, very cute. She gets lifted by all the men. They start massaging all her limbs. They start, giving her champagne and fruit and whipped cream. And then Toya has them carry her over to the couch. And the next thing you know, Simone is getting a little licky on her leg. And, here go Heavily. So, is that something that Cecil does? And Simone says, no, Cecil looks somewhere else. It was just very cute to see them in freaky mode. And, Sweet Tea is having a good time. She says, somebody says, well, is that something that Greg's gonna be doing, carry to the couch? And she's like, Greg is kind of conservative. And they look at her like, girl. And they fall back to Greg, where he like, look, he's on the party bus. Two of the strippers are bouncing up and down in front of his face, honey. And he's like, if I take my pants down, it's like, Greg, they're not coming back up. Greg got that voice. And so we can see that Greg is not conservative. And neither is Curtis, honey, because now he got a balloon bouncing on the booty of the two girls. It was a lot. But the men are having a good time. The ladies are having a good time. And then Phaedra walks out of the party and walks back in with Miss Quad, honey. Child, so the men is at the strip club doing what men do at the strip club, honey. Atlanta really is strip club culture in a lot of ways. Like, there's so many strip clubs in Atlanta. It's not unfamiliar. Nothing that was really happening was scandalous with anybody. This is exactly what would happen at a strip club, especially for a bachelor party. It was very tame, honestly. But I will say this. Greg was being Greg. It was very normal and wasn't really weird. But Curtis, honey, the way Jackie tried to make it seem like Curtis was going to touch nobody, when I tell you Curtis ain't getting them clappers at home. That man looked like if them cameras hadn't been on, he would have been in a champagne room with that girl that was sitting on his lap. Everything about Curtis gives me, I'm almost always ready to cheat. Anyway, there's nothing to tell. The men go to Allure. It's not a big deal. It's a regular standard bachelor party situation. But we do head back over to the suite where the ladies are still conversing and having fun. And then a knock at the door ensues. Really, before that happens, Sweet Tea is in the bathroom with her sister, because right before the appearance of Quad, Sweet Tea gets a call in front of everybody. For some reason, she chose to put it on speakerphone. Girl, why? I don't understand. If I'm in a party or event, I usually try to walk away to where it's kind of quiet. She puts it on speakerphone, and it is her wedding planner, Johnny, which we now know is the guy that used to work for Candy. He was already an event planner when he worked for Candy. It's not really weird that he's still doing event planning. One of the reasons Candy fired him was because he was doing events of his own on the side. And so he would be splitting time between those two on like the weirdest way. Anyway, I wonder if she got Johnny's number from Phaedra, who tried to help him sue Candy back in the day. Interesting how it all goes down. Anyway, Johnny's calling her, telling her that there's this last minute situation. They may have to change the venue again or something like that because some of the other things that they want to do are now going to be a little bit more expensive, about 15, 13 or $14,000 more expensive than they thought. And so that would be added on to the cost of everything that's happening. She's really pissed at this point because event planning is just stressful in general, regardless of if it's a wedding. But when it is your wedding, it's even more heightened. And again, this is why I don't understand why she was having this conversation amongst the entire group sitting there. Because these women are taking this information in and they're not being helpful. They're just being messy and taking in that information and use it against her later or tell her business. And they certainly did that offline this weekend or while this, episode was showing. So I just want Sweet Tea to get, a little bit more just cognitive about being careful about who you tell your information to. But I think at the time, again, these women had enveloped her in a feeling that they were friends with her. And so she was believing them for, being trustworthy to be around and not just taking in the tea to just make fun of her later or talk crap about her later. Anyway, she gets frustrated. Her sister tries to calm her down. She gets upset with her sister and then she kind of walks off with her sister. I didn't think there was anything abnormal about that in the sense that when you're in a frustrated mood, somebody trying to calm you down right away will always be a little off, sister or not. It wasn't that there was a rift between them. It's just naturally, I think, what happens when you're really pissed about something and somebody immediately tries to say like, oh, it'll be okay. And you don't really want to hear that. And I think that's what it really was. I don't think it was about like going off of her sister. So she goes to the bathroom with her sister. Her sister tries to console her, calm down. She apologizes to her sister for going off on her. They start asking her friend while she's in the bathroom about her being stressed about the wedding. And she says she thinks she's fine. She thinks it's just that, it's a lot, saying it's a lot to plan a wedding in a short period of time. And, it could be stressful when it's always something working and not working. And we sort of know how that goes. If you've ever planned a large event, especially when it's very personalized with your friends and your family, it's even with the wedding planner, honey, they could drive you up a wall. You got to pay like extra premium price to deal with somebody who literally will plan everything and you meet 2 or 3 times and then y'all have a amazing soiree. That's a lot of money to pay to be that hands off when you have a wedding planner. So Sweet Tea is frustrated, but she pulls it together. She comes back out. They seem to be having a good time again. And, while she was in the bathroom, Heavenly was chatting with the ladies about how she thinks that, this is just another thing. That's just another sign that they shouldn't be getting married. And, it's just going to go bad. And she don't want to be the person to tell her afterwards. When I tell you, Heavenly is really trying to ruin this lady's life. And it's even more apropos that it's true because then Phaedra gets a text message and it's from Quad telling her she's outside. She walks into the party. Why are you at somebody else's bachelorette party? All the women are shocked. When I say all the women, I don't believe, well, Phaedra's obviously not shocked, but I don't think Heavenly was either. This whole Quad, Heavenly, they're not cool and now they're cool thing feels like a lie to me. I definitely feel like Heavenly befriended this lady to get her onto the show so that she could give Quad a storyline. She already confirmed that, Sweet Tea offline, rather, that Sweet Tea being on the show helped Quad to keep her job. So it's clear that they put this lady on here to, be negative with her and to sort of bully her for this season. So Quad would have something to do because we really don't care. She's not married to medicine. She doesn't work in medicine. She does nothing in medicine. There's no reason for her to be on this show. Even Phaedra faked the boyfriend, honey. So Quad walks in, makes no sense. Why are you here? You're not her friend. And you're also the ex-wife of the person she is marrying. Jackie doesn't understand it. Nobody else understands what's going on. Heavenly's all hugging Quad, happy to see her. They hug, and you can tell that they just want to get messy. So Toya is pissed. And honestly, I was really happy for Toya jumping up in this moment. I know people felt like it was really erratic, but I honestly feel like Toya had the anger that Sweet Tea should have had. Because again, I think she was trying so hard to not be unbothered. And I think that in her trying to be unbothered, she's like, well, I don't really have a problem with you. Like she's trying to take the mature road to say, well, there's no reason for me to be upset. Quad tries to talk her down and says, I don't really have an issue with you, despite what people are saying. I have no problem with you. She even brings us a Victoria's Secret as a gift, honey. But the problem is that you showed up, ma'am. Even if you don't have a problem with her, what in your right mind would think that it would be okay to show up to somebody else's bachelorette party, especially to your ex-husband's future wife party? The idea that the scene needed her in it, it just didn't feel honest because the whole drama about her wedding was enough that we would have probably sat through that for 2 or 3 minutes. That need to add Quad there is another reason of Quad not having a storyline. So let me just show up at this bachelorette party and then be a mix in this situation. And again, this to me is signaling why it's important that Quad probably shouldn't have been on this season. They either should have just brought somebody else on, honey, or figure something out because this lady is clearly her storyline. Toya is pissed. Toya says all the things that really shouldn't have been said by Sweet Tea about why is Quad here. It makes no sense. Why would you show up to this? This is awkward for you to be here. And then Toya says, can you escort her ass out? Which Sweet Tea should have done. But then he would have just said that she was bothered, even though it was inappropriate for Quad to be there in the first place. Phaedra walks her out. And, Quad goes on this whole Toya would love if I was off this show. I find it interesting that Quad is playing victim about being off the show when they literally devised a plan to ice Mariah off the show when it didn't serve the purpose, or they felt like it didn't serve the purpose for her to be there. But now Quad feels like Toya would love to kick her off the show if she had the chance, because you did that with Mariah, girl. Because if Mariah had been on the show, Quad definitely wouldn't have still been as, the way people are hyping her up, and definitely Heavenly would have had her match. It ends right there. They walk Quad on out. We know Twilight and Toya hate each other, and it is what it is. Y'all let me know, how did y'all enjoy this episode? It was okay to me, but I'm more interested in seeing what will happen next week, and of course, the wedding. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Love y'all always. Happy holidays again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.